Hi there, everyone. Welcome to our weekly webinar series. About to pass you over to our fantastic speaker, Christine, who's delivered many other fantastic webinars, and they've all been really, really well received. So if you're watching this live or you're watching it afterwards, we can send the slides to you afterwards. That's no problem. So, feel free. I'll let you introduce yourself again, Christine, just in case people haven't seen the other webinars, because I won't do you justice properly. So
thank you. Okay, let's get the show on the road. So if you're watching this, then hopefully you're a business owner, or you might even be an employee who some of these things might chime with you, and you need to go and get the owner of your business to come and have a look at it, and feel free to watch the replay. You don't need to make any notes because the slides are going to be freely distributed, as well as a transcription of the entire webinar. So today what I want to talk to you about is how to get employees really thinking like owners, because one of the things about business is the business owner thinks about business in a way that no one else does. And it can be incredibly frustrating as a business owner when your thought process is in one channel and you find that everyone else appears to be in a different channel. So what you'll hopefully get out of today is a kind of mini how-to guide on getting your workforce, your employees, your team into an ownership mindset, an understanding of why you actually might be the problem, and what needs to change in your business to actually remove that. To look at the business building blocks that make your business better, to make it worth more and make it easier to sell on better terms at some point in the future, when you actually come to either hand it over to the next generation or actually maybe even sell it to a third party. And then just a very quick overview of a very different approach to people management that's just slightly and subtly different from what you might be doing already. So who am I? Well, I'm UK Business Mentor of the year 2020. I'm an author of 4 business books. I regularly speak at probably about 50 or 60 events a year, and I'm a professional business mentor. Been in business for about 30 years, and I've spent my entire career either starting, building, or exiting and selling businesses, either for myself, which I've done several times, or for other people. And I just happen to be an accountant, but I haven't actually ever worked in a traditional accounting capacity. But I have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of business. And I know what stops a business being worth more. So there's 2 really key elements that will really get the employees or the colleagues or team members, however you refer to the people who work in your business, including yourself. There's 2 really key elements that brings business success to the fore, and that's actually having accountability. So, accountability is really knowing what needs to be done and getting it done, not necessarily doing it yourself. And then understanding why you're doing the things that you're doing, why it matters, and what your part in the whole organization is. Now, when you combine that with rewards that are actually set up in a way that drive or are driven by the purpose and are supported by the accountability, everything becomes easier in your business, not just for you, but for everyone else in it. And that's how people thrive. Now, this chart that's on the screen now it's an old piece of research, but you may recognize some of the factors here, going from entitlement. I know that, in fact, Mark and I were just discussing certain environments where there's a kind of entitlement attitude, and it's where productivity tends to be really low, and there's nothing really driving anybody, but it's just, if I show up, I get paid, and it doesn't really matter what I do. And of course, the opposite end of the extreme is where the people are really frightened of losing their jobs, and or frightened of the impact, and they're working really, really hard, and possibly not working smart, but they're afraid to upset the status quo. And these organizations where fear is running is where you tend to get really high churn of people, and so you find it really difficult to retain really good staff, and you end up retaining loads of people who are just very anxious. And in between all of that is where you get really thriving teams, really pushing for improving the business, treating it as if it is their own, going for excellence, and understanding how their earnings and rewards are related to the success of the company. And it's in this sector, which is having a kind of tension, but not tipping into fear, where people start to thrive and become much, much more productive. Now, for me, and from experience, I know that there's really kind of 3 elements that really make businesses thrive and operate like they are on clockwork. This is like running on rails. And the big one is plans and goals. And often business owners feel that what they've got to do is keep those plans and goals to themselves, especially if they've got really good big plans, because if they share too much, then they might actually be causing some upset in their business. If they share their plans and goals, then what if people don't come along for the ride? Well, if everybody knows and understands those plans and goals, they can select themselves in or out. And it's much better to get people to select themselves out before you find that they're actually the ones that are dragging you back to stopping you achieving your goals. So businesses that run really well have everybody who understands what the plans and goals are. And then they have the right and attract the right people with the right attitudes, with the right work ethics and attitude towards teamwork, and usually the right skills, but you can always train for skills. So if you've got plans and goals and you've got the right people in your organization, and then doing the right things, which is really what systems are. So systems are the processes that make your business work like clockwork. Then you invariably have all of the ingredients for ownership mindset. Because one of the things is when you've got all of these things working really well, then you have decreased staff turnover, and this invariably increases not only your productivity, but your profits. And typically in a culture of ownership mindset, there is a much higher retention, 200% increase in the retention of your employees as opposed to non-engaged cultures. So what are the key elements of those 3 things? How do I get to the point where not only do I have plans and goals, but I can clearly articulate them? It is if your business has visible and clearly understood plans and goals, then your employees are seeing this. They can actually see the vision. They can see what it is that they're trying to achieve. When your employees are given transparency on what the big goals are and how they fit into the journey, then they actually can perform better without constantly referring back to you. And if you're the bottleneck in your business, then you are literally devaluing your business. Your business is worth less, even if your employees are trying really hard to add value. If your employees are taught the fundamentals, not only of your goals and your plans, but fundamentals of business and finance, then they are better equipped to make decisions that adds value to your business. If you're a business owner and the only one who can see this vision, then it makes it really difficult for you to lead the team. It's effectively, you're climbing a mountain with your team being blindfolded. It's a bit like climbing a sheer cliff face without ropes. It's just as risky in your business if you are the only one who can see where you're going. In fact, if anything were to happen to you, then actually your business is much more likely to fade away. In more than 50% of the cases, if something were to happen to the business owner, the business would be closed or insolvent within 12 months. So that it's really worth giving that visibility of what the goals and what the big plans are to your entire team. If your team doesn't know where they're going and you're not there, then they have no direction. And they might start finding their own way. And that might not be the same way that you want them to go. So ultimately, how much trust are you going to put in your employees in securing your financial future as a business owner? And if you're an employee listening to this and you're thinking, yep, I don't know what the business owner's big plans are. I don't know where this company's going. I don't know where they're going to be next year. I have to wait for the budget to come out before I know exactly what the plans are. Then it's possibly a good idea for you to go and point them back to this particular webinar, and hopefully the penny will drop. Because once you've got clarity on your big plans and goals, and you articulate them and communicate them clearly to the people that you've got in your organization, then you're going to very quickly discover whether you've got the right people or not. Now, getting the right team in place is a challenge for every business owner, and never more so than right now. I'm always hearing about the skills shortage and the struggle for getting the right people. And I think it's because people are possibly focusing too much on skills. And I do appreciate many businesses, there is an absolute skills shortage. But one of the things that you can do right now is don't be afraid of making false starts or recruiting mistakes, but actually just take some really simple steps in finding the right people with the right attitudes and the right work ethic that fit into your culture and share your values, and then start training them. And the Kickstarter scheme is a great way of doing that, because it gets you to basically try some attitudes out before you actually buy, and you can start training some of the potential right people to see whether they've actually got the potential to grow into those skilled roles. The thing is not to be afraid of hiring. Every business owner makes mistakes on hiring. And it's really about making sure that if you recognize very quickly, and people will show themselves quickly to be the wrong people, that if you recognize quickly that you've got the wrong people, is actually do something about it. But there is some key elements of really high performing teams. And this really comes down to six elements. That's it from you that need to and your business that will set you into finding the right people. And that's having really good leadership. It's about having robust recruitment and a robust approach to recruitment, to having clearly communicated goals, to having clearly defined roles, but not necessarily restrictive, because if you get the right person in and they're in the wrong role, but they're the right person, there will be a role in your business for them. To have effective and frequent and consistent communication, and also then to have consistent efforts and action. And really the right people, how you know, there's a really good tool for assessing whether you've got the right people. And it's really just three simple things. Do they get it? Do they share your values? Do they want it? Do they want to be part of the future of your business? And are they capable of it now and in the future? And you may recognize this if you watched any of my previous webinars, because I believe that there are 7 key characteristics to really good employees. And it's making sure that when you hire, when you're undertaking the recruitment process, that you can actually filter for these 7 characteristics. And it may take a while for you to discover them, but actually being a team player is absolutely key, because whilst you might have some, and it typically happens in sales, you end up with a rainmaker and you tolerate the most awful behavior because they're making the rain, but actually everybody in your organization is saying, well, it's all right for him, there's one rule for us and one rule for someone else. That's not going to get you a high performing team. And if you have a team player who doesn't create any drama but actually stays calm in a crisis and actually thinks before they speak and thinks before they act, then you're halfway there to having a really good having a really good employee in your organization. People who accept feedback as a way to learn, so that they don't take criticism personally. They accept when they've done something wrong and say, how can I do something better? And that are actually action orientated rather than hesitating and sitting back and waiting to be told what to do. And I don't mean mavericks that go off and do whatever they feel like, but I'm talking about people who understand that they need to get things done and find ways of making sure that the actions that they're taking are the right ones for the organization. People who want to be trusted and respected more than liked, that they're not the ones making the popular decisions, but actually stepping into, I know this might feel like a challenging decision right now, but because I know what I'm doing and I can be trusted to do something, that they're actually going to make the decisions and take the actions that are going to lead to long-term trust and respect, that they have a growth mindset, that they're always looking for what needs to happen next, how can I make this business better? And actually part of having an ownership mindset really is that, having that growth mindset and just being relentlessly optimistic and positive. And I don't mean deludedly positive, but understanding that whatever's going on today, it passes. Whatever crisis there might be, if you do the right things in the long term, then all of these crises will actually pass. Now, I personally believe that there are always three parts to an effective business, and from a people perspective. And this really comes down to the individual, you or each individual in your team. It's the team and how the team works as a whole. And then it's how the company performs and how they all stick together. So when an individual understands what impact they have on the team and then on the business, because they understand and how they impact and contribute towards the goals and the plans of the company, then it actually allows them to perform better. When all of these things overlap, then at the center of this is where all the magic happens. When people understand where they fit, what their role and purpose is in the team, and everybody works together. So individuals in the team, teams and individual departments within the company, and they all work together, then they're actually adding to the total value of the business. And when everyone can see the full picture, then they can all work towards those big goals. So the third element was systems. And in this, I am talking about processes and procedures, not technology. So a lot of people buy technology tools and then fit their processes around the actual tool, which is completely backwards. Systems are really about doing the right thing at the right time for the right reasons. And when you combine all of that with the right people, you've absolutely got magic. But how many of your staff actually know what the right thing to do at the right time is? Because quite often, if they don't know what the long-term plans and goals are, they might understand their tiny big piece of what they're supposed to do in the company. They might have very prescribed roles or very prescribed actions. There might even be a culture of, well, we've always done this. So, but if your staff understand what the right thing to do at the right time for the right reason, and how that affects achievement of those big goals and plans, then they can actually start making decisions without constantly referring back to their business owner. One of the things I always find is that many of the business owners that I've worked with, they'll say, oh my God, I'm always firefighting. I never get time to plan. How can I set some plans up if I'm constantly firefighting? I turn up to work and I start reacting to everything all of the time. And when we dig under the surface of this, typically what we find is that this firefighting is caused by a kind of organized chaos, where because there's a broad idea of what we should be doing, but nothing is documented. And if your systems and processes are literally, as one person's going out the door, they do a quick 5-minute conversation with the next person who's joining the business. And the person who's leaving is leaving because they're completely burned out by constantly running around, working really hard and not working smart. Then one thing that you can do to really add value is actually start documenting these systems, so that these processes, so that you can start systemizing for the future of your business. And that really adds value. Now, the problem with systemizing is it looks and feels difficult, and it is often, or can be, quite hard work. And it can feel complex. And of course, it's not exciting. It's not a shiny new thing, and it's not it doesn't feel like it's customer facing. But actually, putting processes together is really only 3 things. It's identifying what needs to be done. It's writing down what actually happens. And this is the simplest thing, is literally getting your employees to write down exactly what it is that they do, and then put it all together in a package of documentation, so that you've got basically a handbook of your business. Now, what this means is that you can now get someone who doesn't work in a particular department to come and test that process. So you'll identify where the gaps are, and also identify how you can make really small improvements. Because one of the challenges is, if people go, we're going to do a big bang of making an improvement to the business, then everything feels like it's changing all the time. And people, your employees, the people in your company, typically will not like change. You might even not, as a business owner, not really like change yourself. Making small percentage changes to your process consistently means that over time, things will naturally improve. There's an old saying that a very wise person said to me once: an inch is a cinch, a mile is a trial. And if you're improving your processes by an inch at a time, and it won't be very long before you actually find that things start to really improve and start to really work like clockwork. And the great thing is that you don't have to do this as the business owner yourself. Get your employees to do it. I mean, they're the ones who are actually best equipped to, because they're the ones that are actually doing this on a day-to-day basis. And allowing your employees to become involved in this will mean that they'll feel like they're contributing to the value of the company. In fact, if you're an employee listening to this right now, and this is something that your business owner isn't asking you to do, then maybe this is something that you could go and do yourself, because fundamentally, it's literally just documenting exactly what it is that you do, and then taking a step back and saying, is there something that we can do to make this better for the customer, better for the team, better for all the stakeholders, that genuinely adds value? And I don't know a single business owner that wouldn't be happy with an employee that is suggesting ways of improving every stakeholder in the business's lot. So I did promise at the very beginning to talk about a different approach to business, to people management in your business. What I really like about this picture is that it's such an easy visual graphic to get the concept of how little you know about your business. And it's the bigger the business, the further you are away from the front line. But even if you're a business owner that feels like you've got your hands on absolutely everything, you will know less about what the problems are in your business, unless you are literally firefighting absolutely everything in your business. The people who know everything about your business are the people who are doing it, and they will have ideas about how to improve things if you just share some information with them. And I promise you that sharing information is just simply one of the key ways of getting people to work together. And it feels scary right at the very beginning. But I also guarantee you that what your employees do not know can hurt your business. So maybe it's time to start thinking of sharing not only your goals, but also some of the positive actions that can be taken to really improve the efficiency and effectiveness of your business. And that means sharing some of your key performance indicators. And this is really about sharing targets and information about tracking the performance of your business. It's about keeping score so that everybody has their number that they know they have to perform to, and letting them take responsibility for their number. Now, often within small and medium-sized businesses, the financial information that we produce is really sketchy, and it's usually restricted to kind of traditional financial statements, the kind of year-end statements that your auditor or your accountant puts together. But the problem with that is they're usually way too complicated. They don't bear any resemblance to the business, apart from a few key numbers. They're usually produced way too late for you to do anything about. You can't change the direction of your business if you're just looking at your numbers even 30 days after the month end. And I know most businesses are actually only producing year-end numbers nearly 9 months after their year end. And the numbers in statutory format are actually too disconnected from the operational performance. So rather than focusing on kind of lag measures, i.e. stuff that has happened way in the past, what we need to do is really emphasize those numbers that are lead numbers. These are what is happening. How can I tell what's happening right now? So if we looked at some key performance indicators for, let's say, a marketing assistant or a marketing department, then for most at an individual level, we'd be looking at how many calls to prospects we made, how many appointments we booked. At a team level, we might be looking at overall how many leads did we generate or how many proposals did we send. And then at a company level, we might be looking at how much revenue we've generated, how much cash we've received, how many orders we've got going forward into the future. And the real performance, these real-time performance indicators can be the kind of information that we share that generates some real enthusiasm around improving performance, but also acknowledging that individuals can take responsibility for those indicators, and actually letting them understand a bit more about how all of the different elements interconnect to generate the profits that ultimately allow the company to pay their employees on a for at least their salaries and any performance bonuses that might be as part of your contract. So lead indicators are, what do I need to do now to generate that performance in the future that allows me to benefit from the increased value and increased profitability and increased productivity of the business? And how do I, as a business owner, how do I share that? How do I generate those reports keeping it really, really simple. And many business owners try and make it way too complicated. It's for even the most junior members of your employee team to understand the key performance indicators. You just need to really keep it simple. Keeping it really simple keeps people laser focused on what do I need to do to make an impact that positively impacts the company, that positively impacts the team, and that positively impacts me and my ability to earn more or get more rewards or whatever it is that is driving me or motivating me. So one of the key things around having an ownership mindset is really making sure that you have an incentive plan around this. Now, I've seen the good, the bad, and the very ugly of incentive plans. And one of the challenges is designing and implementing a motivational and self-funded incentive plan that rewards employees for really good behavior, really good performance and good teamwork. But most incentive plans are either really ugly, they're too complicated, they're discretionary. Employees can't see how they figure, you know, they can't answer the question, what's in this for me? And often what happens is that then drives really bad or dysfunctional behavior. So the elements of a really well-designed incentive plan are, it drives the value of the business. So it effectively becomes self-funding. You generate more revenue, you generate more profits, and therefore out of the excess profits, you're going to pay a percentage of those in the incentive. It's perceived as value by those people receiving the incentive. The targets are shared. It's not driving dysfunctional behavior because there's a target for me that says if I do this, then actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it really difficult for anybody else to to get their reward. It skews performance. A really good, well-designed incentive plan has to be hung on understandable goals. It's got to be a bit of a challenge, but it's still got to be seen and feel attainable. It can't be, you know, double the revenue next year with actually no additional resources and knowing no potential increase in customers. You simply can't put in front of someone the incentive that's only driven by something that's physically impossible. And when your goals are and all your employee behaviors are all aligned, then you'll get a business that runs on rails because you'll have the right people, hopefully, in your organization. They'll be doing the right things at the right time for the right reason, and they'll understand what's in it for them. Because ultimately, if people understand what's in it for them, they'll be able to tie their behavior to direct reward. Now, poorly designed plans are completely the opposite. They are generally designed around silos, so it's how I perform in my team as opposed to how I perform for the whole company. They're generally discretionary, which means it's like, well, I can work really hard and I can achieve all my targets, but if they decide not to pay me, then that's within their gift. It's where you set unattainable. It doesn't matter how hard I work, I'm never going to get that anyway, so I might as well do the minimum I can get away with. And it's where there's no perceived value to them. So if you're going to reward people with money, and this can be typically where you have, particularly if you have employees that are going to tip into a particular tax rate, or where the money just doesn't mean anything to them, or where it's not tied to goals and it's not linked to work. So if I'm going to get the reward by doing the minimum I possibly can because everyone else, if they all work really hard, I'm still going to get it, then that's a really badly designed incentive plan. And nothing is worse in an incentive plan than something that, because it's discretionary, means that halfway through the year it changes. So when the rules change, that's a really bad plan. So like I said at the very beginning, really to get your employees thinking like owners. It's really about balancing a well-designed reward system, making sure that your employees understand what the purpose of your business is and what your big goals are, and how they fit into the plan. And then the accountability, which is them being able to see what is it that I need to do or I need to make happen so that I can get that reward. And when you have all of these things working together, when you've got clearly communicated plans and goals, when you've got the right people doing the right things at the right time for the right reasons because your processes are being continuously improved, then you end up with a great place to work, because everyone starts to think, and more importantly, acts as if they were the owners of the business. So hopefully that's given you some idea about where to get started. And all my contact details are on the screen. If you have any questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to contact me. These slides will, as well as a transcript of this webinar, and I'll make sure that Mark and his team have everything. And with that, if anyone has any questions, I'll take them and I'll hand over back to Mark.
Craig, do you have any questions while we're on?
I guess it's just really about how to handle those employees then that you find that they are bringing in lots of value but maybe disrupting the team. How can you sort of try and work with them to still bring the value but not disrupt the team so much?
For me, this just really comes down to clearly communicated values. And one of the things that I've often done with clients is actually get the entire team, I mean, literally the entire team, including the disruptor, in a room and actually discuss the values. And I don't mean telling them what your values are, actually asking them as a team, as a whole, what are the values that we exhibit in this business? And what you'll tend to find is that the person who is exhibiting that disruptive behavior is probably very quiet. And everybody else, once you get them going, everybody else will start chipping in by saying, well, we do this, you know, we help each other. We, if there's a mistake made, there's a no blame culture, for example, is one popular one. So we actually help each other perform at the best professional level that we can. And all of the, when the values all come out, you'll tend to find that, and you've all agreed them, then what you can do is the disruptive person, the next time they exhibit behavior that's against those values, you can have a very easy conversation, which is on a one-to-one basis. So your behavior, I'd like you to tell me where on this list of values your current behavior is aligned with any of these. And it's a really, really straightforward question, because if their behavior isn't aligned with your values, then you can say, well, if it's not aligned with the values, it's not acceptable. So how are you now going to modify your behavior so that you're aligned with these values? And it'll be one of two things. It will be they change, and it could be that they're disrupted because they're bored. I mean, it could be because they're not tied into what the big goals are. But the other side of it is they'll leave. And actually, when people like that leave your organization, the rest of your employees are then free to really thrive. Because quite often what's happening is your employees are not behaving at their optimal because they see that this particular behavior is acceptable by this one individual just because they bring in money. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you. I think that makes that very clear.
It's a really common challenge, Craig, that you find a lot. You know, Christine's a coach, mentor like myself, and I think you'd recognise it comes a lot Christine, where people who, especially in sales teams or marketing or something like someone that, you know, because there's models that work, kind of categorize people by performance and attitude.
Yeah.
You know, so this person is high performance, low attitude. You know, if someone's low performance, low attitude, and then they're the people that you're probably not going to stick with forever. If they're, you know, great attitude but low performance, and that's a challenge as well. These people, you've either got to change the people, as Christine says, and get them to improve their attitude, or you need to change the people and find someone who's high attitude, high performance. Something that sometimes works with the people that fall under that box is giving them some onus and responsibility for the values within the organization, you know, involving them, as Christine's talked about the whole time. A lot of this is about being involved and feeling part of it. If they're involved and feel part of it, and it's their job to kind of implement these values and be involved in that, then sometimes that can help to do that, because they're not, forgive my French, outside the tent peeing in. They're inside the tent now, and that can sometimes change them around, because sometimes it is just something that they don't feel engaged, or so on and so forth, because obviously they've got something because their performance is high.
Yeah, and then maybe that goes back to them being bored because they're not involved in something they see as meaningful. So maybe giving them that additional responsibility or something then is that little kick that they need to sort of get them back in line, I guess, or, you know, sort of back in the right behaviors that are aligned with the values.
Absolutely. And do you know what one of the biggest challenges is? It's the fact that most people haven't really done the values work. So what I commonly see is people go, oh yeah, got my values, 5 words. And you go, no, that's just vocabulary. Words are actions. So how do we behave around here? What's acceptable and what isn't acceptable? And actually, quite often when you go and ask your employees to describe your values, or what they, what they would like their values to be, which are aspirational. So it's what actually happens is really important. But if you want to get your employees to do some value exercise, that I guarantee you that they will come up with things that you just think, wow, I would never have said that, but in a good way. Because frankly, if it's, well, we would never have said that in a bad way, then you've got in really bad, you've got big problems. But quite often, employees will come out with stuff that, from a values perspective, and you just think, wow, I didn't realize they felt like that. And it could be things that you can really leverage because you can communicate it to the entire organization. And it's not just your employees, it's all of your stakeholders. I mean, if you have if you've got a group of employees that perform really well, but you've got 1 or 2 customers that are literally drains, like the phone rings, the caller ID has the client on the phone, and everybody goes, oh my goodness me, who's going to answer that? Seriously, nobody, it's not worth the churn in your employees to keep clients like that. So your values aren't just for your employees, they're for all your stakeholders.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good, useful explanation.
To echo that as well, Craig, I'd say all that Christine's talked about is all related to the strategy of the business. It's all related to the culture and those sorts of things, the engagement of the staff. And those are culture and engagement of staff are always ongoing things.
Yeah.
What people do a lot is they put a strategy together, then they engage the staff with it. They're working on the culture, and then they stop doing it because they think they've sorted it. And and it drifts. It drifts again. It's a really common thing. It's something you've always got to work on. There are tools you can get to measure the engagement of staff as well, in your projects, in your overall vision, values, mission, all of those sorts of things. Bigger businesses sometimes use it to measure different departments against each other, and all those sort of things. So there are sometimes some free or low cost tools you can use to see. It doesn't tell you who said what, but it tells you that you've got maybe a potential issue that sales think that marketing aren't pulling their weight, or vice versa, or they don't completely believe in the values that have been espoused by everyone.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say on all of this is that strategy and culture, as a business owner, are your day job. That's it. Those are your two big things, and you lead them, and you get what you show up as, and you get what you tolerate. And I'm always amazed at how many small and medium-sized business owners actually tolerate mediocrity, when actually it's almost like a quarter turn of the screw, and they could actually be releasing the potential in their entire team and be experiencing excellence as a matter of course.
Yeah, thanks for the thumbs up, Craig. Yeah, yeah, and to echo that, often the reason why small business owners don't do that is they're so busy working in the business
Yes.
and don't have the time to help the people, which is another challenge that it's a whole half-day workshop at least. That's
Yeah.
can't cover all of that now, but thanks Christine, thanks Craig, and others that participated, and anyone watching it back again. We hope it's really helpful, as the other videos have been. And speaking to Christine before, part of all these webinars we're doing for employers and employees, they're hopefully proving beneficial, and that's kind of showing out in the stats where all or nearly all of the employees through the Kickstart scheme are being kept on by the employers or are off benefits. So that's a great example of how this kind of added value stuff is hopefully helping employers recruit the right people, develop them better, helping the employees prove themselves. So thanks again, Christine, and thanks to all the employers and employees involved in the scheme, because from our perspective it's working out really well.
I'm glad to be a part of it, so thank you, Mark, and thanks to Craig. Great questions.
Okay, we'll say goodbye everyone, and we'll see you again next week for the latest one. Thanks a lot, Christine.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, Christine. Thanks, Mark. Yeah.